This is better. Good morning. Who is here to make some money? Everyone? Yes. All right. Good choice. The last couple of days, there was one topic I heard in most every breakout or keynote or super session or main stage. That was the relevance of the application. What we will talk about today is specific for our customers that are on the journey into the cloud or in the cloud. We called the session Calling All Rainmakers. The ones who read novels and books would say, well, wasn't that the novel from John Grisham? Yes, it was. But Rainmaker is also a synonym for people that make a difference and that bring extra money to the company. And that's what we hope you will be able, after this session, to do in FY20. We will focus on a journey of our customers that move their cloud loads or the workloads into the cloud. If you look at Cisco stats or other stats, they say 40% of all the companies around the world have public cloud usage. And that is an average across the world, so there are countries where it's far higher. And as customers move the workloads into the clouds, the threats are changing and the attack vectors are changing. So if you Google and look for customers that had been recently breached in the cloud, you find a lot of well-known brands. I want to give you a quick intro to a company that many of us very well, some maybe drive their car, a Tesla. What happened? Tesla got breached in the Amazon Cloud Web Services, the S3. How did that happen? Well, someone put a server without a password into the internet. Somebody found that, and funny enough, on that server were the AWS credentials stored to log in. And they used their Amazon S3 service for crypto mining. Why would they use that? For crypto mining, you need a lot of compute power and energy. So if you want to make a lot of money generating bitcoins, better you use infrastructure that you don't need to pay for. But also, if you have access to those instances, you might have access to company data. In that case, it was data of test machines and test cars. Imagine this would be data that were of you as a Tesla driver. What we see is that 1 out of 10 companies that use public clouds have had an incidence on crypto checking. Crypto checking is a playing with words with crypto mining and hijacking. And that is what our customers need to deal with when they move into the cloud. Many customers believe, well, I move into the cloud, Amazon and AWS and Microsoft and Google, they will take care of the infrastructure, so it's secure. If you go on the marketplace on AWS, you will find over 800 different services that you can purchase for securing your cloud. 800. Some of those are from Cisco, by the way. So, as the customers are moving into the cloud, that is a chance for us to have a conversation because they need to think about how do I secure the cloud? What is available for me to gain visibility? So Tesla didn't see that there was a crypto mining going on their AWS account. So they didn't have visibility to that. We provide something for that, and you will hear that later on. And last but not least, how do you maintain your compliance while moving workloads into the cloud? Cisco introduced at Cisco Live in San Diego earlier this calendar year our application-first security framework. It consists of Tetration, StealthWatch Cloud, Duo Beyond, and App Dynamics. So before we start the session, I'd like to stand up. I'd like to ask you to stand up. Who has sold one of those to one of your customers? Please stand up if you have sold one of those products. Okay, there are a few this morning. Good. So please keep standing if you have sold two to the same customer. Two to the same customer, okay. So guess what's next? Who has sold three? All right, see, there's still a few, and who has sold all 4 to the same customer? Oh, we have one. Is that? Oh! You need to speak to your colleague. So, what does it mean? Our customers move workloads into the cloud, and we haven't been in a conversation with those customers to secure their cloud workload. We have 4 different products that will help in different elements to secure the customer. This is your chance in FY20 if you want to make your target, or like me, if you want to overachieve your target. Who wants to do that? Who wants to overachieve the target? Oh, only a few, okay? Maybe they don't work in sales. I'm not sure. All right. So what we have put together is an introduction into our application first security framework. By doing so, we will introduce you to the new normal before we go into where the money is and then how you become a Rainmaker. And please introduce on stage TK.
Right on. All right.
TK. So you had been in the business, I would say, for more than a few days.
Yeah. Are you saying I'm old?
Does he look old? No, it doesn't look old. So the new normal, how you look like back like 5 years? What is the change? Is it as dramatic as I tried to explain, or is it less or more?
Yeah, no, I mean, to really understand it, you have to understand what brought us here. The new normal is essentially hybrid multi-cloud, right? And I can say cloud, cloud, cloud all day. I can say hybrid multi-cloud, but until I really understand how it came into being, I don't really know how to action on it, right? So I'd like to explain some of that. Cool. So when companies invested all that time and resources and got the real estate to set up data centers back in the day, they didn't set it up to just build a data center or 2 or 3 or maybe 14. They essentially were doing it because they had business-critical applications they needed to run. They did it for the application. So all this hybrid multi-cloud thing should not be unfamiliar to any one of you. The data center is there to run applications. That is the star of the show. The data center is just the bass player and drummer to this band, okay? The problem is there's more bass players and drummers than that lead singer can go sing for now. So I can now run my application on that data center that's native to my business, or I could go run it on a public cloud. That's why we're here. That is why it is hybrid multi-cloud. The security objectives, mind you, have not changed. What we defend and how we defend have changed. And in my short time with you here, all I need you to understand is there are accretive opportunities for you to go and pursue. So please don't take this presentation as my world is going away. I'm not going to. There's more money to make. Hopefully you'll see that. All right. So hybrid multi-cloud, again, it's here. Okay, all of these stats is just to prove it's not 3 quarters from now, it's not next year, it's already here. 94% have plans to move to multiple clouds, not just one. I need to explain to you the significance of Docker containers. And now, I'm not going to get into the technical aspects of it, but just let's say, as an application developer, I can get the necessary and sufficient infrastructure and wrap it around my application so I could go run it anywhere. Okay, it is magical. I'm glad it happened in my lifetime because it was way harder to do things before. Not only that, but I can orchestrate it at machine scale. This is significant if you're trying to do something at internet scale. And then the last thing in this transformative trends are the serverless computing. Okay, and the way I want to explain that to you, it's Uber for code. Okay, like if you're an Uber patron like I am, you don't necessarily have to have a car, know how to drive, pay insurance, get into an accident, or maybe that's a little tricky. But essentially, you just want to get from point A to point B. That is what serverless is for code. And so there's a huge migration of workloads to serverless. Why? Because you get unreal economics and incredible scale. So again, everybody's moving there. And even Gartner's actually starting to write about it. In the end, all I'm trying to show you with these slides is this opportunity is here. This application first opportunity is now. All right. A little bit of history. Some of you have been doing this probably as long as I have, and there was a point in time where we had to image servers from optical drives. So those days are over, right? We don't do that anymore. Well, maybe some of us do, but the hypervisor was born. Then you essentially have containers, which brought us Kubernetes, which is orchestration and serverless. All I'm trying to do with this continuum is show you that your customers are somewhere along this continuum, and they are moving to the right, because as they move to the right, those applications that are critical to that business get unheard of scale and unheard of economics. I'm a customer of it. Most of my things that I run in the cloud and as Cisco services, I try and get containerized and serverless. Why? Because there's way more margin in that. All right? So your customers are doing the same. 40% are in workloads, 66% have adopted containers, and about 36%, these numbers are incredibly conservative. The trend, though, is that as you move to the right, the infrastructure first goes down. The application first goes up. And here's what you have to take away here. Back in the day, when there was only one place to run your application, that application developer inherited the security of that infrastructure. It was there in that data center. When they moved the application to some other data center, some other place to run it, they actually have to go back and find out those security controls. They're the same ones. They still have to do access control, segmentation, strong auth, all this stuff, but now they don't inherit it from that native data center. So you have the infrastructure first budget. I'm sure all of you folks have sold into that. You have an accretive budget that is the new cloud workload budget. This is usually owned by a business unit or some application-centric buyer. And then lastly, you have this sort of application-first budget. But all of these are accretive. And we are here to make money, even those who are technically minded. We had a customer basically passionately tell us, if I could eliminate all of my AWS EC2 instances today and go straight serverless, I would. And this could have been my quote. Okay? I try and build things at scale and with margin. And if the internet shows up on Tuesday, I want to service them without any blip. If none of them show up on Wednesday, I don't want to be charged for it. Okay? That's what you can do these days. And as an application-centric guy, that's fantastic. All right. You cannot change technology without changing the way people do things. Okay? So, you folks are probably very, very familiar with the processes around internet-first buyers. Well, I'm here to say that the process around the application-first buyer is just different. There's a term floating around the industry called left of production, and there's a reason for it, okay? DevOps is what production looks like in an application-first world. Now, mind you, that production is, I'll give you an example. So back in the day, if my vulnerability scanner found a vulnerability on a server in production, I'd go there, I'd patch it, I'd probably have some patch management system, whatever, bring the server around, we're back in business. That is not how it happens. In DevOps, you're left of production, okay? Most of what's happening in production, there are no humans. You cannot have humans to scale like this. It's all machines. So you are left of production. You check your code out, you fix your code, you test your code, you push to production. That's left of production. It's a different buyer. They still need the same security, though. All right? So everything in this world I will leave you with is, for an application-first buyer, everything is code. If you want to sell them something, you sell them code. StealthWatch as code, Dual Beyond as code, Tetration as code. You hand them an API, okay? Because they view storage as code. They view networking as code. Everything to them is code, all right? And you have to sell to them that way. So here's these opportunity profiles that I sort of put together for you to ponder. One is the lift and shift. So in this hybrid multi-cloud journey, the majority of customers, I think, are on this sort of lift and shift. They have data centers. They're doing a reduction on data center. They're using the cloud to augment their workload. I want to see a show of hands. Who has customers who are in this lift and shift profile? Right. It's pretty common, right? I mean, if you're in business more than 10 years, you probably had a data center because there wasn't really a cloud back then. Application-first buyers and opportunities go up. Infrastructure-first buyers go down. We cannot forget that there is a new buyer, too, here. A new profile. Cloud-born, HomeAway, Recurly, Bluevine. These people never had a data center, and they never want a data center. They were born in the cloud. They just have DevOps, okay? Here's an opportunity where you only have application-first opportunities to sell them. And then lastly, I'm not even going to ask for a show of hands. We work for a company that has separate worlds. We acquire companies that are cloud-first, okay? Born in the cloud. And we, Cisco, have been around long enough that we still have our data centers. They have completely different budgets. In this crazy world, you can sell the same damn product twice because those people aren't even talking to each other. It's craziness. All right. So, again, with all these opportunities, the question is, how do you qualify that opportunity? And then once qualified, how do you lead with the right product? Because really, leading with the right product will get you a beachhead, and you can pull the rest through, okay? Make it easy for the buyer. Really, lead with the right thing, pull the rest through, and it should be very easy. All right, my time is up. If you all noticed, my last name is Kianini. It's Hawaiian. I was born in Hawaii. I'm very passionate about my heritage. And I met a guy named Matt Robertson who's very passionate about being Canadian. And my thing to Matt is I want to let you all know, especially those people who are fortunate enough to go to Hawaii for that President's Club. Hawaiian pizza is not from Hawaii, okay? It is just not. And I'd like to invite to the stage Matt Robertson. Hawaiian pizza actually was invented in Canada. Okay, so I get to blame him.
Well, thanks, TK. Thank you. It's a true statement. Hawaiian pizza was, in fact, invented in my hometown in Canada, not in Hawaii. Now, and as any good Canadian, I will apologize for that. But I will not apologize for a very Canadian food, which is poutine, which is delicious. You can eat that in Canada. Please do. Probably not in Hawaii. It's a little bit calorie rich for Hawaii, I think. But anyway. Okay, so what TK just introduced this idea of application first and the messaging that we launched that at Cisco Live. And so what I want to do is start with the video that accompanied the launch. So if we could cue up that video, that would be great.
These days, it's almost impossible to imagine a world without apps. Apps for sharing food with those in need, sending yourself fake messages, even milking cows. It's just as impossible to imagine business thriving without them. After all, apps are your prized possessions. They're why your customers love you and how you generate revenue. But, and here's the reality, apps are also how you invite more risk for cyber attacks. You see, with applications running everywhere, accessed anywhere, and constantly changing, your workloads have become moving targets for all kinds of security threats. For that very reason, lots of organizations are holding up on app deployments. Well, imagine a world where you had the confidence to deploy apps without security hurdles slowing up your game. And developers were free to code to their heart's content. That world is here, thanks to Application First Security from Cisco. It brings security closer to your applications, providing insight and control, so you know what apps are running, who's using them, and when to remediate an active threat. With software guardrails, you can ensure compliance. So as apps change, you can count on security staying continuous, and our security will adapt. So go ahead and run the apps your users love you for. Application First Security is the only solution that delivers visibility, compliance, and threat protection at the speed of your business. Dare to take your business as far as you want, securely. Learn more about our Application First Security solution that includes Petration, StealthWatch Cloud, Duo Beyond, and App Dynamics. And find out how more effective security controls can transform your business. Go to cisco.com/go/appsec. These days...
Well, we're going to play that again. All right. Whew, that was close. Could have been the rest of the presentation. Okay, so that was a very application buyer-centric messaging. So at Cisco, we have been very effective at selling network security to the infrastructure-centric buyer. Now, and I've labeled this as somebody that reports up into the CIO, CISO reporting structure at our customers. And if you look at what their needs are basically securing the infrastructure, securing the business, securing the physicality of the location of the business and the things they own. Access control, visibility, segmentation, threat controls, and so on. In this new world, there is a new buyer. It is the application owner. And their focus is on securing the ecosystem of their application. And I'll call this workload security. But they have the same problem set. Solving the access control problem, solving visibility, segmentation, and threat controls in the ecosystem of the application. And just as an example of this new buying center, and TK kind of alluded to this, and you're wondering why there are two engineers up here at an AM track session talking about who your buyers are, that's because we actually are. We are your buyers. We are your customers. TK is the CTO of 3 cloud products, StealthWatch Cloud, AMP, and Cognitive Intelligence. These were all born in the cloud. They exist in the cloud. And as the owner of that product set, he needs to secure them. We don't report up through John Stewart in the way that we normally would, the infrastructure buyer would. We report up through David Geckler as part of the business unit. And the cost of securing these applications comes out of the gross margins of our product lines. It's a very different type of buyer. So keep that in mind. There is a new buying center that has a creative business. And I'll give an example of this momentarily. But this is a different world problem, different worlds, but we have the same problem. So you take 2 Canadians as an example. One lives in a house on land. The other lives at a pile of sticks at the edge of a pond. They have the same basic problems in surviving. They need food, they need beer, they need water if they don't have enough beer, and they basically need shelter. But, that's the same problem. So if we look at this, so what we have always done in the infrastructure world is we approach that network buyer, we approach somebody in that reporting structure of the CIO, CISO, and we overlay or incorporate security into the network. We give them access controls, segmentation controls, threat controls, visibility. We can do the exact same thing in the application space because that is exactly what the buyer needs. They just need to incorporate this into their environment. Okay, but incorporating the access controls, the segmentation controls, the threat controls, the visibility into the application itself. And TK mentioned this is incorporating them as code. So a lot of the times when we're in these environments, the integrations between and amongst these become part of the application through APIs. And when you are in this realm and you're talking to customers that are application-centric or might even have the existing data center, there are, in fact, multiple opportunities. So, for example, at Cisco, we have a requirement for the CIO, CSIO reporting structure up through John Stewart. They have this question: what are my application guys doing in the cloud? We need visibility controls just so we understand to protect the business. We don't want to overexpose the risk of the business. The application owner, at the same time, has to secure the application because they're responsible for it. So CSIRT, for example, is a StealthWatch Cloud customer and uses StealthWatch Cloud to monitor workloads at Cisco. At the same time, we monitor AMP with StealthWatch Cloud. That's two opportunities. They're able to sell twice in some cases to the same customer. So a little bit about this owner, about this buyer. Who is this application owner? Now, we mentioned their main goal is being in business. They are responsible for the business of that application. And you're not in business if the application is not available. It must be up at all times. It must be able to service the internet on Tuesday, and they don't want to pay for it on Wednesday when the internet's not there. And that goes into optimizing operations, which is down there. They want to minimize cost, and they want to make sure that their cost does not balloon. You know, Lothar mentioned an example of Tesla, which was popped and was scaled out to do crypto mining inside of the organization. The only person that makes money if you are crypto mining in the cloud is the person that does not have to pay the compute bill. It is not profitable to crypto mine in the cloud at all, okay? But if you're not paying the bill, it's great. But you know, they want to minimize those costs of the business because it comes out of their gross margins. They need to be compliant. Nobody goes to production if you're not compliant. If we want to launch a cloud service at Cisco, we have to pass pen test and prove to the CSIRT organization that we've passed pen test. Things like GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, all matter in these realms. You must be compliant. You have to protect customer data. And the bottom one there, loss of customer confidence. Nobody uses a cloud service if they don't believe that that application owner is going to protect their data. And hence, they go out of business. So they have all of these set of requirements as that buyer. So I'll give you an example. Does anybody know what is the top cloud security threat? Beavers. No, it is not beavers. It's not beavers. That is wrong. Okay, nobody? All right, okay. It is credentials. Credential theft, misuse, lost, stolen, expired, whatever. Credentials are the single biggest threat to a cloud environment. And the reason for this is simple. It's in the cloud. It is accessible by the internet. Every available service that the cloud providers provide is an attack vector that is accessed through some piece of credentials, whether that's an SSH key, an API key, a username and password. It is something that allows somebody to access that environment, and then once you're able to access the application, figure out how to get through the rest of it, and hopefully maybe make some money. So here's an example. Suppose this beaver, in some way, maybe borrowed my credentials, stole them, figured out a way to get to them, and some way accessed a service that is running in a cloud application. From this point in time, now that they're in this workload, we'll call it a workload, they can access what's called the instance metadata service. And the instance metadata is a double-edged sword in these cloud environments. It is necessary for every workload to know what it is and run, and it's what enables elasticity in these environments. But if it's misused, and this is what we call a server-side request forgery inside of cloud workloads, is being able to get information about what this instance is, and then what gets leaked out of here is everything that instance can do. It's permissions, maybe it's keys, maybe the groups that it belongs in, and what else you can do. And at this point, this beaver can now begin to replicate this presence inside of the environment, move laterally, if you would, across the application itself, to other workloads, to S3 buckets, to basically getting more information. At this point in time, the beaver can choose to monetize the application in a way that's profitable to the beaver. And now the beaver is the rainmaker, which nobody wants the rainmaking beaver. That's odd even to Canadians. So how can we bring our solutions to stop this? And so I've given you one problem, and I'm going to explain how we can address it with the portfolio. So first off, we have Duo. So Duo, multi-factor authentication in infrastructure environments, well, it's easily extended to cloud environments, multi-factor authentication for cloud environments. It helps answer the same questions. Are you really you in the cloud environments? And remember, it's not just a username and password. It could be we want to have authentication for write functions, for example, or hitting up an API that's critical. You might want to actually, can we validate this beyond just the keys that are involved? And this is a full stop statement in that last bullet. So Duo Beyond has an AWS integration. Amazon's own customers were asking for multi-factor authentication so badly that Amazon went and built it. They built an integration with Duo, and they directly support it. So that full stop statement of if your customer has Windows workloads in AWS that are using the AWS AD, they need Duo, and AWS would back that up. They have built and maintained that integration themselves. All right, so next one, Cisco Tetration. So this beaver, when he was in there, was moving laterally across the organization or across the application. And now, we've talked about lateral movement, detection, visibility for years at Cisco. Well, hey, it's the same problem set in the cloud. So Cisco Tetration solves the problem of application segmentation risk management inside of the application ecosystem. It's basically helping to facilitate this is not what you're supposed to be doing in those environments, and effectively reducing the attack surface as the orchestrator of what it would be policy inside of the application across the multi-cloud. And then lastly, we have StealthWatch Cloud. So what happened in the attack scenario is that the beaver was doing something that would be weird for a given workload, right? So StealthWatch Cloud is providing security analytics for these cloud workloads, helping to ask the question or answer the question, is this weird behavior for you? And is a critical component of what we can do in an application security world. And remember, when we're in this workload space, as TK was mentioning, it's not just a VM running in a cloud. A workload could be a Lambda function. It could be an API. An abnormally behaving API, unusual number of API calls, somebody logging in geographically from a geographically unusual place. These are all things that are components of what we can do in the cloud environment. And StealthWatch Cloud has native integrations into both AWS, GCP, and Azure, so that we can actually have agentless deployments into these environments. So I took one problem, the top cloud security threat, gave you 3 solutions that allows you to basically sell into these environments against one problem. And what that did is effectively lay out what we could decide as a path to success, which is get a beachhead and bring the rest in. So TK introduced 3 personas or 3 profiles, the first being lift and shift. So this is somebody that has a data center that's running an application, and they intend to move that application towards cloud in order to take advantage of the elasticity that's offered and hopefully improve their profit margin. So in this space, depending on who you're talking to, it depends what you're positioning. So if you're talking to the infrastructure buyer, you position Tetration. Be able to say, hey, you might need common policy and segmentation inside of your application as you make this move, and we'll help make this move easier for you. You can position StealthWatch Cloud and Duo for multi-factor authentication, for visibility across the application as it moves. And then if you're talking to the application people, the guys that are touching code and doing development, you can position App Dynamics. Okay, so now Cloud-born. This is the people that have never had a data center. So they're running their workloads entirely in the cloud. So the easiest things to position and bring to these guys, StealthWatch Cloud and Duo. The time to value is minimal. You can set both of these up in 10 minutes. So you can basically approach that guy, the DevOps guys, and go, listen, in 10 minutes, here you go. Now, if you're talking to the guys that are actually touching code again, we have AppD, helping to make that application run better, more smoothly, and more profitable. And if you're talking to and then ultimately bring in Tetration for common policy across the multi-cloud. And then finally, we have separate worlds. So separate worlds, this is one of the most creative opportunities you can create or get, because they are basically merging of both of these. You'll have legacy data centers. You'll have people that have cloud-native applications like we do that came in through an acquisition. And so you can actually have multiple opportunities to depending who you're talking to. So you're basically merging the two ideas and then identifying the buyer and positioning the right product here based on what I've already talked about. Now, you'll notice one unique thing here. There's this little white circle that's touching the application, and that's App Dynamics. So our path to reaching DevOps, if you don't already know those buyers, is App Dynamics. And is there anybody from App Dynamics in the room? We've got Roy here. Fantastic. Okay. Now we got a couple back here. Awesome. Okay, so for those of you that don't know your App Dynamic counterpart, please meet them. They can be your path to DevOps. They can be your new best friends, finding you new buyers, finding you in a creative market that you're not currently selling to because they've been selling to these guys forever. Okay, so just as an example customer that we've done this with. I'm not making it up. There is a real customer. It's Nielsen. Nielsen is a 70-year-old company. They have legacy data centers. They've been in this path of migration for years. They're, in fact, the source of the quote that TK gave earlier about moving to serverless. They are, in fact, one of AWS's largest customers, and they're a large media research company, so they do a lot of interesting things, and they need a lot of compute to do that. But they were actually a very early Tetration adopter for segmentation across and within sites. Earlier this year, they became Stealthwatch Cloud's largest single deal to date, and that was so that they could run analytics inside of these cloud workloads. And then I'm told there's a very large Duo opportunity that's in process that's definitely going to close and make everyone lots of money. But that is currently what's happening. That's an example customer of how we got the beachhead, and we're bringing in everything else through time as the customer begins to expand. All right, so I was told I definitely need to talk about competitive, and I was a little bit afraid that Mike Storm would come up and throw me off the stage, so I agreed. So a little bit about competitive. There are competitors in this space. We're not the only people that have thought about this, okay? Like, that would be weird. There's a lot of people. The number one competitor that we come across as we talk about this solution is actually native offers in the cloud environments. AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure all have some form of native security controls inside of the environment. Now, they actually tell their customers that it is your responsibility to secure your application. They call it, in these cloud environments, securing cloud applications is a shared responsibility. AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, they really only promise to secure the infrastructure, and it's your responsibility to secure the application. But they offer, some services that they charge money for to help the customer along. Our primary differentiator in these is that our solutions are all multi-cloud orientated. They don't rely, every offer that's native to these environments obviously does not integrate with their competitors. So being able to say we are multi-cloud, and most customers want multi-cloud. Azure has been on a storm the last year in terms of adoption. Being able to, as it adds more services, we are provider independent. This is an analogy of like relying on your landlord for all of the security of your building or your house. That's kind of, you tend to want to do a little bit more beyond your landlord, just because, maybe put up a camera. And then in some cases with our product sets here that we're talking about, they have native integrations in all these environments, and time to value can be quick. And it's always, and our offers are always above and beyond what is native. And then we get to what is our traditional security competitor, who is actively addressing this market, including making big acquisitions in the last year, namely in the form of RedLock and Twistlock. Now, RedLock, you can counter directly with Stealthwatch Cloud. Our analytics are superior. We do a lot of things that they don't. Twistlock, you can counter with Cisco Tetration. Competitive assets are here, some very good ones. There's whole presentations there. Unfortunately, I can't go deep into them. I encourage you to take a look at. And one other thing that I want to point out is that, I'm doing a direct competitor, RedLock to Stealthwatch Cloud, Twistlock to Cisco Tetration. If you bring in the other components of the solution, Duo, AppD, Palo Alto doesn't have those. We can differentiate above and beyond. And what Palo Alto's strategy here is basically bring these into this environment, maybe give them away for free for a year, maybe try to get their customers to use it. And ultimately, They're trying to take that whole customer and break them entirely Palo Alto instead of Cisco security. So our goal here is to try to keep them from taking the customer away. We want to maintain our firewall sales to the rest of the infrastructure. So use these products to keep Palo Alto out of your customer. They're going into cloud firewall RFPs and just going, oh yeah, we do everything, but we have a superior solution set. Okay, so my final comment here is there is a new buyer, and there is a creative market here in the form of this application owner in the application business. They have a security problem and money to spend on it, and we have solutions that can help address their problem. With that, I would like Lothar to come up and talk about how we can separate this new buyer from their pile of money and give it to us.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Can you hear me? No. Now you can. Okay. All right. So if you believe Palo Alto just acquired them to acquire them, you would be misled. They will go aggressive after that market. You might remember when you looked around in the room when I asked the audience to stand up how many of those 4 elements you have sold to one single customer. There was only one gentleman that did it last fiscal year. Only one. So to all the others, this is an upsell for you for this year. We want to secure our customers' cloud workload. Imagine Tesla would be your customer, or just think about your customer today. What are you doing to secure them? You heard about the 4 different elements today. This is our invitation, this is your invitation to speak to your customer and talk about tetration, talk about App Dynamics, talk about StealthWatch Cloud and AppD. If we don't own that conversation, the others will do. Many customers use different models to benchmark their security. One of those is when you go about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So your CISOs are using different methods to assess how are they doing and how can they increase security posture. So what we tried is to map those elements you have seen into one of those models. So very simple. Around confidentiality, it's about do or beyond, making sure that only the right person with the right device gets access to the right application. Tetration, to secure application integrity. You heard about how to segment the application in the cloud. And last but not least, to make sure that the application itself is performing as it should, to use App Dynamics. What we believe is to build around a fence, so to say, around a holistic detection with StealthWatch Cloud. So what we did is to apply that, for example, for a finance customer. How would that look like? So App Dynamics clearly would help to guarantee or to check the availability of the banking app on the phone, for example. Do or beyond would make sure that only the right person gets the right access. And last but not least, tetration will secure the application integrity. Everything mapped around with StealthWatch Cloud. And the aim is, as I said it earlier in the opening, to stay compliant, and you had Matt and TK talking about that, to either, in this case, it's around GDPR in EMEA or around PCI DSS. So how now are we making you a Rainmaker? How do we do that? We launched at Cisco Impact the Managing the Application Experience sales play. This is brand new. If you hadn't had the chance to go to the hub, there's a few minutes left before you leave this afternoon. Get familiar, because it includes all the 4 elements we talked about today, plus the Intersight, plus the Workload Optimization Manager. It covers all the segments, and it gives you the right talking points to the CIO and to the CISO and to the application owners, so that you get relevant for them and hopefully start to engage with the next element, with a trial. So today, 3 out of the 4, we can give you free trials. For tetration, we will introduce the free trial throughout this fiscal year. The best way to experience what we can do is to show it in a customer environment. So I really encourage you to do so. John, at the Super Session in Security, he launched a program ending by end of October, who is doing the most trials in security. Those elements are part of that. So if you really want to kick you off in the Q1 with a fast start, use those trials to get and win. After you have convinced, we're giving you a program and different way on the buying side. If you have a customer that embraced the whole Cisco security portfolio, the security all-in, the security 1.0, what we call it, is the right choice. If your customer is on a journey with us, don't try to push an EA 1.0 in with a high discount, doesn't make sense at all. Use the security choice EA that we introduced in FY19. You might have heard it yesterday, or if not, we are lowering the entrance level to 150K. In addition, titration becomes part of EA choice in Q1 around September, October timeframe. And if you're in an early stage with your customer, then start with the SVP with a software security volume purchasing program. Well, you say, Duo isn't on the list. Duo will become on GPL throughout the Q2. And for sure, we will see throughout FY20, Duo becoming parts of any of the programs. And we have a program for App Dynamics if you have a customer above 500K. So here's my call out to you. Take it serious. Your customer's workload is not secured. If it's not us, other will do it. And what I hate most, if I get a call from my sales team and saying, oh, Lothar, we were too late, twist lock or red lock already in there. That gets me mad. And you don't want a mad Lothar, I can tell you. All right. So to close up, I would like to ask TK and Matt to come back on stage. So, you talked about the new normal. What is the key takeaway?
I have three.
Three? Give us three.
One, the new normal is hybrid multi-cloud. Two, yesterday after the talk, when we did this the first time, people were asking about, oh, do these four products integrate with each other? That's a very infrastructure-first thing, okay? What I'm going to leave you with integration, for the app-centric buyer, they want APIs. They want these four objects to integrate with their app, not their infrastructure. So give them a set of API docs. Tell them, look, StealthWatch is code, titration is code, Duo Beyond is code, AppD is code, right? That's the thing. And the third is we like to be treated like Uber drivers. So please fill out your surveys. 5 is a really great number. Appreciate it.
Matt, over to you. What's the key takeaway?
I mean, my number one point is that, there is that new buyer, it's the application owner, and their problems are the exact same problems we've always sold to, just inside of the ecosystem of the application.
All right. And last but not least, trials. One more? Trials.
Free trial.
What do you want to do in Q1? Trials. All right. And user buying programs. With that, thanks for joining. Vote our session, but be successful in securing your customer cloud's workload. Thank you.